Welcome everyone to the Toronto Heschel School's Fall Open House. My name is Bailey Daniels. I'm the Director of Admissions here, and it is amazing to have people here in the room for a live event. Woo! This is our first indoor live event, and we're so happy that we are able to do this in a safe way with everyone vaccinated and distanced and masked, other than the speaker, just while speaking. We are also really happy that we can accommodate those of you who are at home. And actually, when people registered, it was really, until the last minute, it was almost a 50-50 split between people who wanted to come in person and people who wanted to watch by Zoom. It turned out Zoom ended up tipping the scale, so there should be more of you on Zoom. And we're really happy that you could be here too. We're hoping that this is our first, but maybe our only hybrid open house. We'll have to see. So the open house is being recorded for a few people who couldn't be here tonight. If you are on Zoom, don't worry, you can keep your cameras on. You will not be part of the recording. And if your camera's on, then you can get that feel like you are in a room with a bunch of people too. So there are some members of our leadership team here that I would like to introduce before we get started. We have Greg Bayless, head of school. You'll certainly be hearing a lot more from him shortly. We have Ellen Ostofsky, who is our Director of Development and Community Engagement. We have Heidi Friedman next to her, who is our Director of Early Years and Child Study for JK to grade 2. You'll hear a little bit more about what child study is a little bit later. And we have Mark Abramson, who is sitting at the back at the moment. He is our Director of Business Operations. I'd also like to thank Esther Barry, who is handling things on Zoom. If you're at home and you need to ask a question on chat, Esther is there to give you a hand. So let's talk a little bit about what we're going to talk about. So after I do a little bit of my welcome, we're going to hear from Greg. After that, we're going to have a short video of one of our alumni from 2012. We will then hear from Jonathan Levy, a current parent at the school. This will be followed by FAQs and a Q&A session. I thought I would just do some quick FAQs because they're bound to come up. And after that, we're going to split into two groups. The two groups being those of you who are on Zoom and those of you who are in the room. Those of you who are here, we're going to go on a tour for those who haven't been here before and would like to. We're going to have Heidi Friedman doing our early years tour, which is fantastic because no one knows more about the early years program than Heidi does. And for those of you who are at home, Esther's going to play a video of Heidi speaking at last year's open house. If you've seen that on our website, it is posted on our website. You certainly don't have to watch. You can skip right forward to our virtual tour, and Esther will be enabling you to get to that point as well. So, here we go. My question here, are all Jewish day schools the same? Well, whether you're all in the room or you're home at Zoom, thank you all for taking the time to learn about the Toronto Heschel School. Choosing our children's educational path is one of the most important decisions we ever make as parents. And so it makes sense to invest the time that it takes to find a school that is going to resonate with your hopes and aspirations for your children. As a parent of 3 children who are now 16, 18, and 20, I have certainly done my share of school research, believe me. But I must say that I really did not do a ton of research at this stage when it came to early years and primary education. My husband and I came from different educational backgrounds. He went to Jewish day school and I went to French immersion. And I was pretty much convinced that French immersion was the way to go. But we had premarital negotiations of what our kids were going to do when they were eventually brought into the world someday. And I really had lumped all Jewish day schools into the same bucket, that they were all the same. And it turns out that I could not have been more wrong. There are so many ways that Heschel stands out from the pack. I didn't know that there was a Jewish day school that promoted intellectual curiosity instead of rote memorization, enabling deep learning and preparing children to tackle 21st century challenges. I didn't know there was a Jewish day school that excited children by what they were learning in class by aiming to inspire awe and wonder in every lesson. I didn't know there was a Jewish day school that encouraged its students to consider Judaism deeply and to ask questions about the issues that may puzzle them. I didn't know there was a Jewish day school that imparts progressive values. introducing students to the diverse peoples of the world and insisting that all are treated with respect and kindness. I didn't know there was a Jewish day school that instills the habits of the heart, soul, body, and mind, which allow every student to go into the world with compassion, conviction, and confidence. And I didn't understand the positive impact that a Jewish day school could have on my children's ethical framework through the emphasis of weekly midot that teach children how to be mensches. So many of Heschel's unique offerings were inspired by Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, whom you may have heard of as a civil rights activist who was lifelong friends with Martin Luther King Jr. Heschel marched with Martin Luther King Jr. in Selma, Alabama for Black voters' rights. And he wrote about that experience and said it felt like their legs were praying that day. The idea that prayer can be something that you do traditionally with a siddur, but can also be something that you do with your legs, with your body, through action, was really foundational in the establishment of the Toronto Heschel School. The social action and responsibility that we teach is multifaceted and includes commitment to environmental education and stewardship. We encourage our students to think about and act on interlocking global issues from climate change to cultural equality. The school's celebrating its 25th anniversary, and there is a lot to be excited about. Heschel has received third-party accreditation with high commendations from Prisma, which is the network for Jewish day schools across North America. We were once again, for the umpteenth time in a row, designated a Platinum Eco School, which is a certification of environmental excellence in Eco School Canada's last round of accreditation. We were also recently named the top private school in North York by the North York Mirror for the second year running. And we are currently up for Best Private School in Toronto in the Toronto Stars Readers' Choice Awards. And that the results for that are coming out next week, so stay tuned, you never know. So we're also really proud of our students' achievements. In the last year, we've had 2 grade 6s who teamed up. They were part of the Environment Committee, and they won first prize in the National Young Reporters for the Environment video contest for their video on deforestation. We had a grade 5 student who won the first prize in the Polar Expressions Poetry Contest and had her poem published in their anthology. And as part of a call for community submissions, a grade 4 student's artwork was displayed in the Art Gallery of Ontario's Portraits of Resilience exhibition. Now, some of these contests did not run in the last year because of COVID, but I thought it's worth mentioning that our students do always participate in both the Gauss and Caribou math contests. And in the last edition, which happened 2 years ago, our students placed in the top 5% of students who participated nationwide. We also had several Heschel students who earned high achievements in the Beaver Computing Challenge, including one student who earned a perfect score on the contest. So we are really proud of all the ways that our students get involved and have achieved various successes. So the Toronto Heschel School has produced a couple of excellent music videos in the last few years. It was hard to decide which one to play for you, but I chose one, and we're going to play you one now to share a little bit of the school's spirit.
Please come inside. since we all went to school. Facts and figures aren't enough. It's higher learning we deliver. Breakthrough teaching, you'll get shivers. Developing young minds is what we do. Hear this song, come along. Children thrive when they belong. Our kids learn to collaborate, create, debate, and calculate. Connections that they make will last lifelong. Hear this song, sing along. Here's where your family belongs. Jewish learning is an art, nurtures mind and soul and heart. It's a compass that will help you get along. Hear this song, sing along. Here's where your family belongs. Jewish learning is an art, nurtures mind and soul and heart. It's a compass that will help you get along.
I really do love that video. And the other one is great also. You can see it on our virtual tour. I'll send links out to those of you who are in the room, and Esther is going to put a link in the chat for those of you at home. So it's my pleasure now to introduce Morag Greg Bayless. Morag Greg, my notes are over here. They're on the screen too. He is obviously the head of the school, as well as director of the Lola Stein Institute. Greg has actually taught every grade at the school from grade 3 up since starting at Heschel as a teacher 24 years ago, and he has been the head of the school since 2014. He holds a Master of Arts in the Philosophy of Education, as well as a PhD from U of T Center for the Study of Religion. In 2019, the Toronto Heschel School was very proud that the Covenant Foundation awarded Greg a prestigious Covenant Award, which honors exceptional Jewish educators who have made an impact on Jewish life through innovative educational practices and models. Receiving this award is a significant endorsement of Greg's vision for Jewish education. Greg.
Okay, thank you, Bailey. Okay, hi everybody, good evening and welcome. Erev Tov, it's really so awesome to have people, adults, back in our space. We have children, which is amazing, and certainly much better than last year when we didn't even have our children, but it's just really nice to see you. So thank you all for taking the time to come out and spend some time with us. Bailey, that was a really awesome introduction to the school, and I feel like I don't really have to say as much as I normally do, but since you did a great job, so thank you. I love that video too, and one of the reasons I love it is my daughter is in it. She was, I think, 8 or something in that video, and now she's at King's College University in Halifax, but it's very heartwarming. And we do have some more recent ones, but that one is a classic for sure. So my job is to kind of give you some insight. I'm going to call it under the hood, looking into the hood, the engine, the insides of the Toronto Heschel School, because what really makes the school unique is not the what we teach, but the how we teach. Bailey mentioned that our goal is really to instill in students habits of heart and mind and body and soul. And that happens not because they learn to multiply, although they will learn to multiply, don't worry. It happens because of the way in which we teach and learn at Heschel. And so you're gonna have to bear with me because I have a lot to say, but I'll try to say it quickly. I think it's all kind of important when you're thinking about a school, what really matters. So one of the questions I often get asked by prospective parents, and maybe some of you have this question also, is Heschel a religious school? And yes, we are a religious school in the sense that Judaism forms the basis of much of our curriculum, approach to values, derech eretz, the way we comport ourselves. Jewish practices kind of give our students a sense of belonging, a sense of community, and a sense of place. But much more than that, when people ask this question, I like to respond with something that Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel said about religion, which is that to be spiritual is to be amazed, to have a sense of awe and wonder, to wake up in the morning and not to take life for granted, to kind of look out and say, wow, isn't that amazing? That ultimately for Heschel is kind of what he imagined was the meaning of being a spiritual or a religious person. And in that sense, we are most definitely a religious Jewish day school. Our main goal, more than anything else, is to encourage our students to have a sense of awe and wonder and amazement and curiosity and interest in the world in which they find themselves. Now, we do this in a lot of different ways, and probably the most unique in terms of how our school works is through an integrated curriculum. So we teach all of the subjects, and I'll talk a little bit later about how we teach all of the subjects, but we try to kind of teach the subjects under the umbrella of what we call a big idea. So in every grade, there'll be 3 or 4 big ideas that are explored over the course of the year. And I'll give you one example. This is from our senior kindergarten curriculum. The big idea is be flexible. Learn how to be flexible. Something kind of important when you're 5 and you're just starting to kind of make your way in the world socially and intellectually. How do you learn how to be flexible, not get stuck? So we always begin with Torah, and this is kind of what I mean by our school is infused with Jewish content. We start the big idea with some teaching from the Jewish tradition. In this case, the teaching comes from a story of Abraham and Lot, who are trying to figure out how to divide the land in which they live in, and they're having a bit of an argument or a debate, and Abraham says to Lot, if you go left, I'll go right. If you go right, I'll go left. Take whichever side you want. And that's kind of the starting point for the story of being flexible. From there, we take this to the realm of social and emotional learning and self-regulation. So if I'm stuck, I'm upset, I'm mad, I'm frustrated, something's going on, or I'm playing with a particular toy or object and it's time to stop, but I don't want to, how do I learn how to regulate myself? How do I learn how to be flexible? And we use a lot of mindfulness techniques with our students, a lot of critical problem-solving techniques to help them figure out how to be flexible. So the story from the Torah immediately becomes part of our students' lives in thinking about their own self-regulation. Flexible conflict resolution. What happens if I get into a conflict with a peer, or with, we both want to use a particular color, pencil crayon or marker? What are different ways that we can solve the problem? And using the kinds of things that happen in children's lives, regular things that come up with their peers, starting to develop the capacity to problem solve, to think through different ways of solving. We can take turns, we can trade, we can each use the color for a certain amount of time, those kinds of things. Another example of flexible problem solving, how do we get everybody across the river if we can only take a few people in our hula hoop at a time? So there's kind of a playfulness that's brought into all aspects of the learning, and then again related back to the Torah story. Moving the big idea into the disciplines, into the subject areas, we think about what does it mean to be flexible in math? When I'm adding, when I'm subtracting, if I'm looking at a number like 5, how many different ways can I make 5? What are different ways of representing 5? Through objects, through numbers, through symbols. So the numbers, the adding, is almost like a pretext for teaching the more significant skill of thinking flexibly and critical problem solving. Thinking flexibly about language. So again, as we learn how to spell or as we learn how to write, thinking about how words are constructed and how graphemes and phonemes go together in a way that, once again, is about thinking flexibly, trying things out, experimenting, seeing what happens. Bilingualism is a key feature of the school. Starting in junior kindergarten, the students encounter an environment where one teacher only speaks to them in Hebrew, another teacher only speaks to them in English. So this serves a lot of different purposes. Obviously, research will tell us that this is the best way to learn a second language, and for us, Hebrew is a very important part of our students' identity as Jewish people. But it's also just really good for the brain. The ability to move between languages, the ability to kind of think. There are actually certain things you really can only think in Hebrew, and that experience of being able to kind of switch between those modalities, just really, really great for the mind. And there's actually some really interesting research that we came across a number of years ago, which suggests that it might even help students with their empathy. Because when you're in a different language, you're suddenly kind of realizing that somebody else actually kind of thinks in a different way than I do, and that the ability to speak different languages has actually been shown to enhance students' kind of social emotional abilities and sense of empathy. So this integrated curriculum, I gave you an example from senior kindergarten, but it works all through our curriculum. So if we go up to, say, grade 7, in grade 7, there's a wonderful generative topic called form conveys meaning. It happens at the very beginning of the year, and students will be studying a text about the Talmud, a text about a prayer, shapes of prayers like a shofar in the Talmud. They'll be studying geometry and math, where form and meaning are deeply related. They'll be studying poetry and language arts and how the structure of the poem conveys the meaning. And in science, they'll be looking at forms of energy. So these big ideas continue to evolve as the students move up through the grades, and in really interesting and dynamic and sophisticated ways. One great example from this form conveys meaning unit is a Rube Goldberg project. So we like to have a lot of hands-on learning here at Heschel, and people I think are quite accustomed to hands-on learning in kindergarten or grade 1 or grade 2, but as you move up, you think, okay, now we just need to use pencil and paper. We keep our kids doing hands-on learning throughout the years, and there are, in every grade, usually a number of kind of building, making types of projects. This is one of my favorites. It's a Rube Goldberg project where students study forms of energy and how forms of energy can transfer into other forms of energy. So I'm just going to show you a quick video here of this particular project. It's a great example of learning at Heschel.
This is my Rube Goldberg project. My end goal is to paint a picture that's going to look something like this light bulb over here. In my machine, I use 3 simple machines. I have an inclined plane, which is this piece of wood, and this tube. And then I have a wheel and axle, which is the wheels on the car. And then down here, I have a pulley system. To start my machine, I light this string on fire, which is thermal, chemical, and radiant energy. The string is going to snap, which is going to release the car, which is gravitational to motion energy. As it rolls down the inclined plane, it will hit this bucket of marbles, which will knock over and become sound energy because you'll hear the sound of the marbles rolling down, and it's gravitational to motion again. And it's going to go all the way down this tube into this bucket, and because of the weight and the gravitational energy, that bucket's going to fall and flip up this green domino, which is going to end up knocking all of these Jenga pieces. And these 2 black things are magnets, which is electromagnetic energy, and they'll come together, knocking the rest of these dominoes down, which is more sound energy. And it'll eventually knock those 2 balloons, which will be right here, onto the pins, and they will pop and paint my picture.
Think it's going to work? Let's see. Amazing, right? I love that one. So these kinds of projects happen throughout the grades, obviously at different levels of sophistication. This is grade 7, but all through their time at Heschel, our students learn about what it means to build, make, and learn through the experiential process. Oops, no. There we go. So in addition to integrated learning, another feature of the school that's really important is arts integrated learning. Again, there is a significant amount of research out there at this point that suggests that learning through the arts, whether it's visual art or drama or music or dance, considerably enhances students' educational experience. For some students, it's just the entry point that they need to kind of get into what they're learning. For other students, it's what enhances their learning. For other students who may never have thought of themselves as being artists or musicians or dancers, and we certainly don't have to be any of those to come to the Heschel School, they discover new things about themselves. One of the things that I love the most about teaching through the arts is you see other sides of children come out that you just wouldn't see if they spent all of their time sitting at their desk, writing and doing pencil and paper tasks. And it's really an opportunity for those students who may be not as strong in some of those areas to show their strengths, and for other students to see the different talents that their peers have. So we do pretty much everything across the arts here. Music, as an example of the 10 Plagues soundscape, a hip-hop battle through dance, a scene from Shmuel Bet, which is one of the books of the Tanakh, of the Bible. Oops, there we go. First Nation stories interpreted through patterning and beading. This is one of my favorites. It's a macrame interpretation of B'nai Israel's journey from slavery to freedom, the knots of slavery and the loops of freedom, interpreted through macrame. Eco Seder plate for Pesach, done through the ceramics program. Silk screen telitot, we'll actually see some of those if we go upstairs and take a look after the presentation. Puppetry, drama, all of the arts play a significant role at the school. And again, it's not about, people say, well, I don't think my students really, he or she doesn't like to draw. It has nothing to do with that. It's really about activating different parts of the brain, and all of our students participate in all of the arts. One of my favorite moments is seeing our grade 8 end of the year performance, or the Hanukkah performance, which is a significant dance production where all of the students, boys, girls, dancers, non-dancers, are participating in this amazing piece of choreography. So it really is about just diversifying our cognitive and our emotional experiences. Learning through play, very significant at all ages, obviously really important for the little ones, but we continue to try to bring a sense of playfulness into everything that we do at the school, from JK all the way up to grade 8. Here's a picture, an image of a couple of students playing a math game. We do teach traditional subjects using games as well, and using play. And actually math is one of the areas that we have a lot of games as part of that process. Here we see some examples of using our outdoor space for play. Not the best time of day to see our outdoor space, but if you haven't seen our outdoor space, I strongly encourage you to take a look. It's amazing, big, huge, expansive green space, and we use it a lot. So integrated learning, arts-based learning, that's kind of one side of the school, and in many ways what makes the school quite unique. There's a whole other side of the school that people know a little bit less about, but it's just as important, and we call this thinking in the disciplines, which really is, what does it mean to think mathematically? What does it mean to think scientifically? What does it mean to think like a writer? Arthur Costa, who is the educational researcher who came up with the idea of habits of heart and mind, has a wonderful statement here where he says you really don't have to teach children how to think. Children are born knowing how to think. That's just kind of what it means to be a human being. But learning how to think well, precisely, thoughtfully, intelligently, that's really the purpose of school. That's the purpose of education, in the same way that one trains to become a ballerina, or any kind of form that you want to become excellent at. And we take that very seriously, and we think a lot about how to use the traditional disciplines like math or science or language arts or Hebrew for that matter, to develop students, develop and refine their thinking capacities. So for example, science at Heschel almost never means opening a science textbook, because science textbooks are kind of like language arts, right? That's what textbooks are. You read and you take in information and you answer comprehension questions. Science at Heschel is almost always hands-on experimentation, because that's what scientists do. Scientists ask questions, they make hypotheses, they do experiments, they analyze the experiments, they come up with the answers to those hypotheses, and then they move on to the next experiment. So science here is really about the scientific method. Writing is really about the writing process. So what is the writing process? The writing process often involves some steps before just writing. At Heschel, the writing process often begins with students closing their eyes and going on some kind of imaginative journey, some kind of guided visualization, because in order to be a good writer, in many ways you first have to stimulate that part of the brain that forms images and narrative in your mind. And you'll see right now, when you walk around the school, you'll see quite a lot of poetry around. The first unit at the school across the grades is poetry, because poetry is that art form that really stimulates the imagination. And we want our students to start their writing journey at the beginning of each year by stimulating the imagination. And then later on, we'll get to the more formal forms of writing, narrative, essay, etc. But at the beginning, it's really just about imagination. Art, it also has its own process of visualization, planning, experimenting, and refining. Mathematics. Again, mathematics shouldn't really be about opening books and answering questions. Mathematics is really about the ability to look at a problem, evaluate it critically, and think about how to solve the problem from different perspectives. And we've done a lot of thinking here at Heschel around how to teach math. One of my friends who has a PhD in mathematics likes to say, you know, Greg, numbers are the least important part of math, right? Math is really about problem solving. So we know that we still need to have numbers, of course, and numbers are important, but I'll give you just a little example about how we teach math at Heschel. So if you had a problem like this one that you see up there, 399 times 7, when we were in school, we were kind of taught a pretty formulaic way of answering that question. You line up the numbers, make sure one number is on top of the other number, make sure the ones are all in the same column. Why? I don't really know why, but it's really important to set it up on the page. Maybe math is art, I don't know. You know, setup matters. And then you start to proceed very systematically. 7 times 9, okay, that's 63. So I put the 3 there and I put the 6 on top. But where do I put the 6? I have to remember to put the 6 in the next one. Why do I put it there? I'm not really sure why, but I know in the end it's going to get me the answer. And that's just kind of the way we proceed. And really all we're doing there is multiplying by ones each time. 7 times 9, 7 times 9, 7 times 3. And we will get the answer eventually. But the truth is, it's not a very smart way to solve that problem. And as adults, you know, most of us can probably look at that problem right now and realize a much smarter way of solving the problem. But if we learn how to do that already as children, it helps our sense of numeracy right off the bat. So here at Heschel, we would encourage our students to say, 399, that's really close to 400. 400 times 7, okay, I'm in grade 4 or 5 here, so I can do the simple math. So 400 times 7 is going to be 2,800, and then I just take away a 7, a group of 7. And by teaching math this way, what we're reinforcing is that mathematics ultimately is about counting and grouping, counting and grouping, counting and grouping. I think that's what a famous mathematician once said, most math is counting and grouping. And this kind of stuff we do a lot without pencil and paper. So there's a lot of mental math that we do at Heschel to really encourage students not to just kind of start, you know, writing the answer and trying to remember how the teacher said to do it, but to actually look at the problem and say, how do I solve this problem? This starts really early. So grade 1, how do you add all the numbers from 1 to 9? Well, you could do 1 plus 2 is 3, and 3 plus 4 is 7, and 7 plus 5 is 12. Or you might just notice that all of those numbers make really easy pairs. 1 plus 9 is 10, 2 plus 8 is 10, 3 plus 7 is 10, 4 plus 6 is 10, 5, and you get 45. So this kind of thinking, looking at numbers from a logical perspective, understanding the power of the number 10, which is obviously key to our number system, is the basis of math here at Heschel, thinking like a mathematician. Our teachers here are amazing. Rabbi Heschel says that what you really need in education are text people, not textbooks, and we take that very seriously here. Some people have commented on the fact that we don't have smart boards at Heschel, and I say really, you don't really need to worry because we have smart teachers. And it is very, very true. Our teachers are dedicated and passionate. We put a lot of effort into training our teachers, providing them with ongoing mentoring throughout the day, throughout the week. They have time to collaborate with one another, built right into their daily schedule. And our teachers are really, really excellent at what they do. Many or most are bilingual, or at least Jewishly conversant, and come from many, many, many different backgrounds. So we have teachers here who come from architecture, teachers who come from working in the area of the environment, all different kinds of backgrounds to make up our faculty. Oh, back to mathematicians. Now what did I do? What did I do? Menu. There we go. Child study at the school is I'm going to call it the department, but it's really a perspective which says that children are whole people. We don't just care about their brains and their minds, we also care about their emotional states, about their social relationships, about their physical state of being, and we spend a lot of time here thinking about just how children are doing in all areas of their life. So there's a weekly meeting where the teachers who teach the children in a particular grade meet together with a child study specialist. Heidi plays that role in the early years. We have other people who play that role in the upper grades, and talk about the kids. How are they doing? How's this one doing? How's that one doing? And if kids do need some special help with challenges that they're having, either academically or socially, the child study specialist helps guide the teachers around that kind of work. And if special assistance is needed, the child study experts can also help parents navigate that process. Outdoor learning, a huge, huge feature of our school. The last couple of years, we've just been so grateful to have access to our outdoor space and used it tremendously due to the COVID issues we've had to deal with. But even before and certainly after, we use outdoor spaces a lot. So that's one of our outdoor classrooms you see up there in the one image. We do math in the garden. That's a yoga tefillah minyan, I believe, down on the bottom left there. So lots of use of the outdoors. And I'm just going to show you a little message here from Moria Yarden Bourlas, who is our environmental specialist. And she's going to tell us a little bit about, I think this is outdoor learning, but it might be the learning garden. Let's see.
We've always valued outdoor learning at Heschel for the main reason that it takes kids into a different setting. It affects their senses differently. They can feel the sun on their face or the wind blowing through their hair. They've got an open sky to look at, and it serves as an entry point for almost anything that they're studying. If they're studying poetry, there's math being done in the outdoors, and it's done in a way that is so harmonious with the way children learn that it works so beautifully for almost any subject that they're learning. In addition, I would say that this year in particular, because we are making an effort to spread out and breathe fresh and clean air, and we need a break from our masks, the outdoors has become this just enormous classroom that works so beautifully. We've always got students learning outdoors in our outdoor classroom areas in the sukkah. We're using the field, we're learning under the willow tree, and it's amazing this year particularly. I'm surprised that students from different cohorts are watching each other learn outside, and there's this amazing feeling of togetherness, even though we're apart, that the outdoors gives us.
That gives a really nice sense of how we used the outdoors last year, but are continuing to use it this year as well. And, oops, here we go. I think this is Moria Yarden talking about the learning garden. Let's see. Same one? No.
So in the garden behind me, we have a bunch of different garden boxes, and each grade is responsible for a different garden box. So for example, in JK, the kids plant potatoes, and then when they move to SK the following year, they harvest them and they use them at Hanukkah time when they make latkes. Another example is the grade 3s. They study First Nations, First Canadians, and they learn about the story of the three sisters, how corn, beans, and squash, which are the three sisters, are planted all together in the same area, and each one serves a different purpose. So the corn serves as stability for the beans to wrap around. The beans add nitrogen into the soil, and the squash sort of shades everything out, protects from weeds, and gives ground cover so that the moisture can stay in the soil. So they sort of learn about the symbiosis and the strategy behind this and the story of the three sisters from the First Nations people. We've got a folklore garden for the grade 4s who study folklore, and also grade 5 studies food and food security. So we've got all kinds of different heirloom vegetables in the garden that they take care of. So the garden has been sort of a growing part of Heschel's outdoor education program from the beginning. In the Heschel sort of pedagogical angle, awe and wonder is the main part of how we learn. So Rabbi Abram Joshua Heschel said that the root of learning is in awe and wonder, and there's no better place to experience awe for children than in the garden and outdoors. So for example, during garden club, I get all these amazing moments where a child will rush up to me and show me, Moria Yarden, look at this worm, look at this crazy snail. The excitement is there. The feeling of planting a seed and watching it sprout and eventually grow and then harvesting it is such a vital part of Jewish learning and of learning for children in a way that connects them to their senses and to a feeling of connectedness with living things and the people around them, and ultimately to that feeling of awe that we so value at Heschel.
Okay, so some great insights from our learning garden and our outdoor education program. And there we go. So connected to that, environmental stewardship, a really, really important feature of the school, woven throughout the curriculum in different ways in different grades, a sense that the world matters, the environment matters, and understanding that as a Jewish value, from a Jewish perspective. Obviously important for everyone and not just a Jewish matter, but also important for us as Jewish people. We have a number of really interesting programs. Our grade 3s, again, last year I believe this was on hold due to COVID, but generally speaking, they're involved with a program through the Toronto Zoo where they help put salmon back in Lake Ontario. So we have a salmon hatchery here in the hallway, and they see the eggs hatch and little salmon, and then they take them to a river and put them back into the natural environment. We have a beautiful pollinator garden outside. You may want to wander outside even though it's dark and take a look at, see what you can see out there. Yeah, just lots of projects and curriculum and activities related to the environment. Pluralism and diversity is obviously a very significant feature of the school. We have families from all forms of Jewish expression here at the school. The school is intentionally pluralistic, which means that it's not just a question of anyone can come. We actually teach that there are different ways of expressing your Jewish identity, different ways of being Jewish, different ways of praying, different kinds of Sidurim, different approaches, and that's a very important feature and part of the school. As the students move up through the grades, they start to take part in explicitly pluralistic approaches to prayer. So, they'll pray for 6 weeks using a Reform Siddur, and 6 weeks using an Orthodox Siddur, and 6 weeks using a Reconstructionist Siddur or a Conservative Siddur. We do all kinds of really interesting and kind of creative approaches to prayer. So just today, for example, I had a group of grade 6 students that I take every Wednesday morning to do mindfulness, tefillah, prayer through mindfulness. So we were doing that out in the garden. We have a prayer through yoga, prayer through dance, lots of different approaches to spiritual expression. Derech Eretz, which is really the Jewish word for how we conduct ourselves, how we behave, is a really important part of the school. And one of the foundations of that is a program we call Midat HaShavua, which is the ethical measure of the week. So each week we look at the Parshat HaShavua, and frame a particular idea or value to be practiced during that week. The students talk about it all week. They think about different ways of practicing it. And we really see it. We see it in our students' behavior. Be welcoming. Don't wait to be asked to do something kind. Heschel students are known for being the door holders. They don't just, let you walk through the door and slam it in your face. You'll see kids, opening the doors for each other, opening the doors for adults. It's just kind of bred into what it means to be a Heschel student. Things don't always go right. We are children, we're human beings, sometimes we get it wrong, but the approach that we like to take here at Heschel is nobody intends to do something wrong. We're all created b'tselem Elohim, in God's image, which means it's never our intention to do something that we shouldn't do. It's never our intention to hurt somebody's feelings. It's never our intention to get into a conflict with a peer. It's never our intention to interrupt the class on a regular basis, right? Usually if we're doing that, there's something going on for us. And so we take what we call a restorative tikkun approach to dealing with things that come up like that, which is the sense that we can always fix what we've done. We can always fix it. The idea in Judaism of this, this word sin that no one likes to talk about, chet, the word actually is an archery term, meaning missing the mark. Like my aim was good, but I missed the mark. And that's kind of the approach we take with our students when they do miss the mark. And, as human beings, they sometimes do that. Social justice is a really important feature of the school's educational approach. As Bailey mentioned, we're inspired by the work of Abraham Joshua Heschel, and in every grade there is at least one, sometimes more, projects related to social justice and Tikkun Olam. And last but not least, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the Lola Stein Institute. The Lola Stein Institute is kind of the think tank associated with the Toronto Heschel School. You may have seen Think Magazine. You may even have a Think Magazine in your packet there. And it's an opportunity for teachers at the school, people who are interested in our educational philosophy, to write, learn, express ideas about Jewish learning and kind of raise the bar for everyone around what Jewish learning can be. So yeah, and I encourage you to take a look at Think and read it. There's some really, really interesting articles in there that will help you give you a deeper insight into the school, into our approaches, and into our pedagogical philosophy. Most important are our graduates. They're the ones who can tell you kind of where it all goes, where it all ends up. I'd like to just take an opportunity to play you a short video from one of our graduates who recently visited us after having, I think, been off, I don't know where she was, but she was, I think, out of town for maybe 10 years. She came back to Heschel. She walked through the school and she's like, this is exactly how I remember it. And she offered to share some words with us about her experience at Heschel.
Hi, my name is Alexandra Goldman. I graduated from the Toronto Heschel School in 2012, and I graduated from the Smith School of Business at Queen's University, and I'm on my way to law school in September of 2021. I'm very proud to be a Heschel alumna because I truly believe that everything that I learned at Heschel has carried itself over with me into everything that I do, into all of my education since I graduated. I learned emotional intelligence. I learned how to truly be empathetic and compassionate towards other people. I learned how to be empathetic and compassionate towards the environment. And I learned how to really appreciate community and specifically the Jewish community. As I've grown older, I've learned to appreciate all of these values more and more. And today, I can honestly say that I don't think I would have learned any of that if I hadn't gone to Heschel. All of our days were always filled with creativity and imagination and learning about our ancestors and the Torah, and I learned how to trust my gut. I learned how to really listen to myself, and I learned how to listen to others around me, their feelings and their emotion. Like I could have, at university, for example, I could have gone with a more conventional Smith School of Business, commerce degree route to becoming an investment banker or like a digital marketer at a really big company, but it really didn't feel right to me. It didn't feel true to me, but law school definitely did. And I think that self-understanding is like one of the thing that I'm probably most grateful for out of anything that I've ever learned. I was actually talking to my older sister the other day, and I said to her, if you're going to give your children anything, the best gift that you can give them is sending them to Heschel, because what you learn here, like you can't learn at any other school. Like as I said before, the emotional intelligence, the creativity, the initiative, the risk taking, the drive to become a global citizen. You know, like no other school that I know teaches that. And the people that I know that graduated from Heschel really do have such a deep understanding of who they are and of what they want to do and how they want to be in the world and how they want to treat people and how they want to contribute to make the world a better place. Like Tikkun Olam is the center of everything here, and as a 22-year-old speaking to that now, I'm like forever grateful that somebody taught me the importance of humanity and giving back. And I really don't think I would have learned it otherwise if I didn't go to Heschel.
So nice. I don't know if Alex was there, but last night a group of 18 of our alumni gathered to make sandwiches for people on the street. And that's the kind of thing, that's an alumni event at the Toronto Heschel School. So. Okay, back to you, Bailey.
Thank you.
At this point, normally, by the way, in a Heschel class, we would all stand, we would like stretch, or we would do something physical. But I think we only have a few more minutes. So
only have a few more
We'll get
minutes.
to do that in a sec. Yeah.
Yes, I was also going to mention that alumni event. We also had some alumni at the school this morning, apparently, who volunteered for some of the kids' outdoor phys ed classes. So it's always great to have alum come back and feel that connected to the school and continue to be part of the Heschel family. So now, whoops, there we go. Please now allow me to introduce Jonathan Levy. Johnny's been a parent at the school since 2007. He served on the board of directors from 2014 through this year, and he acted as chair from 2018 to 2020. Thank you so much, Johnny, for joining us.
I'd wait for the applause until the end if you think I deserve it. Let's. Hi, everyone. So thanks so much for the time. There's probably three things you never want to do, which is come at the end of an event and talk. Talk after Greg, who said it all. And also, I have horrible penmanship, and I've been trying to take notes, so please excuse me misreading, misremembering. I have 4 kids. I'm blessed with 4 kids. 2 have already gone through Heschel. One is in first-year university at Waterloo in engineering. One is in grade 11 at Chat, who was here last night making sandwiches. And then I have a grade 8 student and a grade 6 student who was probably doing the meditation services earlier with Greg. We've been a family at Heschel since 2007. We are a graduating family in 2024, so we're looking forward to that too. And I remember being in all your shoes when we were choosing schools. So we made the rounds to a few other schools, which we're not going to mention here. We also made the rounds at Heschel, and we were really impressed. But what really put us over the edge, which was that I remember going to a bar. It was actually a bat mitzvah, Beth David, when we had bat mitzvahs. Folks remember those days. And I remember from when I was a kid, and you were there too with me, Simon, we used to mix drinks at the tables and do all sorts of nonsense and shenanigans and all that stuff. And it was, in hindsight, a lot of fun, I guess, but also pretty horrible. And I remember being at this bat mitzvah and seeing this group of kids who were just so lovely and engaging. And they were engaging of each other and of the adults, and they were paying attention to the bat mitzvah woman herself. And it was just so lovely, and we asked which school they went to, and it was Heschel. And so that was sort of the over-the-top kind of moment where you realize these are the kind of kids you want to raise yourself. Not just thinkers, of course, and people who care, and people who are committed, but also people who are, compassionate and understand when to be respectful and when to actually participate as they should. So that was really just lovely. I know everyone comes in with their assumptions of Heschel, and we had ours as well. And back in 2007, it was really around the idea of very environmentally focused, not so sure about the math or the Hebrew and stuff like that. I don't know what the assumptions are now, but it's what Heschel's meant to us, and what Heschel is for us is completely different. Firstly, Greg's talked about the academics and Bailey about the alumni and the supports, but Heschel is a big community. So a community of parents and a community of students, and it's lovely. There's the Chevra committee. There are committees that make sure when someone has a baby, they have a gift at their door right away. People who are in mourning have a meal organized for themselves as well, regardless of the grade and things like that. So it's the school, it's the class, but it's that much more. It's the academics. I have to say, my wife is a math teacher. My son, as I mentioned, is in engineering at Waterloo. So I hope he does okay, but not too bad to get in. And the math and the Hebrew have just been remarkable, especially for us, which were some of the most important things for us. So they've excelled academically. But Heschel's really created thinkers and people who care and people who are committed to social justice, as you heard, and people who understand the interconnectedness of the disciplines, but of the world. And it's been really marvelous to see that in my kids' eyes. I was asked to talk about some of the events that are notable. And so, for me and personally, the idea that my kids have experience with First Nations and Indigenous communities through some of the programs has been really special. Not just through the textbooks and through discussion, but through relationship with elders and trips to community and understanding tobacco and things like that. I have to say the Rube Goldberg experiment has been notable. Although you didn't choose my kids, I noticed that. I don't know why. We'll talk about that after. And the theater programs have been really remarkable. Greg didn't mention, but Heschel has a relationship with a Toronto Muslim school and has really partnered as the Muslim community has suffered some tragedies, or the Jewish community, just to show the support amongst each other is just really important for me, and was important for me to show that there's a world out there that extends beyond the Jewish community. How you extend your values to other parts of the community is really, I think, at the heart of Heschel. But I thought it's the day-to-day that's the most important, that's least notable but most important. So when you come to Heschel, you'll see, not now, but in a normal year, the grade 8s and the grade 2s playing together. In the playground, just kids cutting across all the aspects, which I just think is a testament to the kind of school Heschel really is. So I'll try to keep it relatively short and cut it there. I just want to say that when I look at my kids, the characteristics that I really most appreciate, I see how Heschel has fostered that. The curiosity, the caring, despite anxieties, the interest and ability to put up your hand and ask that question and really put yourself out there, and then the care for each other and the community as a whole. So for us, Heschel was definitely the right choice, and I appreciate and marvel at what it's done for our family and how it's really allowed us to stretch and grow. And I hope you see that. It's hard to encapsulate a year, let alone 14 years in a couple minutes. But there's a spirit to Heschel that really goes beyond just a slide deck presentation or an open house. And I hope you take the time to really get to know the Heschel that I have and my family has, and that what the kind of Heschel that it might mean for your families as well. So that's it for me. Thanks for the opportunity to talk.
Thank you so much, Johnny, for that invaluable parent perspective. It's always good to hear the point of view of parents. And if you want to speak with other parents, we're happy to connect you with other people as well to ask your own questions. So this was just going to be a regular Q&A, but I thought, people are always, every time I've done a Q&A session, the same few questions always come up. So we're just going to start with those, get those out of the way so that we can then turn to your other questions. And I'll try to run through these pretty quickly. Okay, so this isn't David Letterman style. We're not doing a countdown, but there are 5 of them. So top 5. Number 1, what are the school hours? Okay, the school starts at 8:30. We ask that the kids be dropped off at 8:20. And depending on the grade, the kids are dismissed at different times, 3:45, 4 o'clock, or 4:15. Early dismissal on Fridays during Eastern Standard Time. Daylight savings time's a little bit later, but all the kids get out at the same time on Fridays. Number 2, do we offer busing? The answer is yes, we do. Busing is contracted with a private company that it runs minivans, but it's subsidized by the school. And the boundaries do vary by demand, so it can vary from year to year. But right now it's around from Finch to St. Clair and from Avenue Road to Dufferin. Number 3, do we offer aftercare? Answer is yes, we do. Our before and after care here is called Kids Club. It runs from 7:45 till 8:30 every morning, and it runs from 3:45 to 6 p.m. Monday to Thursday, and time varies on Shabbat and during holidays. We also, during a normal year, would offer a wide range of extracurricular activities after school. Number 4, how big are our class sizes? So we accept up to 40 kids per grade, and that will be divided into 2 separate classes. The average class size is around 18 students per class, so it could be a little bit more and it could be a little bit less depending on that particular grade. Our student to teacher ratio is 6:1. And number 5 is a little bit longer of an answer, but people always want to ask, and for good reason, where do our grads go to high school, and are they well prepared? Thank you. Forgot about this. Maybe you can hear me better now. So typically around 50 to 75% of our students do end up at Chat. Most of the others go to public high school. Sometimes that's for a special program like Claude Watson, the MAX program at Mackenzie, which is for math and computer science. And sometimes the gifted program, or sometimes it's just regular stream public high school as well. So as an example, I just took a look at Chat's numbers. So 50% of our class 4 years ago went to Chat, and out of those that group of people, 89% of them earned an average of over 90% in their last year, and 11% earned averages of over 80. So I would say they are doing just fine in high school. There's different awards that Chat offers. I think our grads have won them all, whether that is an art award, computer science and technology, math, phys ed and kinesiology, Jewish thought, Talmud, and a couple of special awards like the Morris and Rose Alspector Award for highest average in Judaic studies over 4 years, as well as did I get that name wrong? No, the Eric and Marcia Slavens Award for sports and academic achievements. Outside of chat, past high school grads have also won the Governor General Award for the highest average scored in a particular individual high school, as well as earning prestigious scholarships such as the Schulich Leader Award, which is an $80,000 to $100,000 scholarship for students studying STEM subjects, as well as entrance awards to various universities. So all of this is to say that our students are definitely most prepared for the challenges which they will encounter post-graduation in their academic studies ahead, as well as life in general. All right, we're going to turn to regular Q&A. For those of you in the room, you can just raise your hand and you can ask the question. Greg, if you want to come up and help field some of these. If you are at home and watching this on Zoom, we do have Esther who's going to help us out by relaying your questions. If you want to put them in the chat, Esther will be sending them
to me?
Yes,
Yeah.
Esther will be texting them to Greg. So if he's peering at his phone, he's not checking sports
No,
scores.
not checking sports
He's just seeing if there's any questions from the at-home audience.
I guess we'll start with people who are here. Any questions that are on anything that's on your mind, anything that we didn't get to? I know we covered a lot of ground, a lot of information, a lot of perspectives, but if there's anything that we didn't get to or you still have questions about. Yeah, it's a good question. I think they do. I think one of the things that Heschel prepares students well for is how to encounter problems and figure out how to solve them. So I think they do a pretty good job of encountering the problem called rote learning and figuring out how to find their way through that. I don't know, John, what's your experience of your kids in high school around that piece?
Similar experience, but it's
Yeah.
very well prepared. I think also the fact that there's so many disciplines with Heschel has helped to, for Chat or other schools as well, translate to being ready for multiple disciplines of high school, for sure.
Yeah, and I mean the Heschel program is pretty rigorous as well, and it's not, students also do write tests, and there also are, can be, especially in grade 7 or 8, kind of large unit exam type things. So they do, they're accustomed to that as well, but I don't think that's ever been an issue. I think, sometimes it's a little less interesting, but, high school has other interesting things about it as well, so. Other questions? No? Esther, I don't know if who's out there. Hello to everyone who's out there, by the way, on Zoom. I didn't say hello to you when I first got up, so thanks for joining us. Esther's going to shoot me a question. How do the graduates fare in grade 9 Chat, I guess, or other high schools? Do they adjust well? Do they perform well? So I think we have sort of answered that question, both in terms of encountering, a more traditional style of learning. I've never heard of that to be an issue for the kids, and as Bailey pointed out, our students do really, really well. One thing we do know is that there's an exam or a test that Chat gives, and we're talking a lot about Chat because that's the place that we have the most data from, but students do go to other schools as well. To get at the beginning of, or I guess when you apply to Chat, there's a test they give to kind of place the students in the different disciplines, and our students almost uniformly 90 to 100% over the recent years have been placed in the academic or the enriched stream in pretty much every subject: Jewish, general studies, math, Hebrew, Talmud. So they do really well. Another question. Can I please repeat the in-person questions? Yes, I shall do that. Question, I noticed in some of the videos, some of the girls seem to be wearing a kisui and some haven't. Is it mandatory for everyone, or can students decide on their own not to wear? So the question is referring to the head covering. So in the video, if any students appeared not to be wearing a kisui, it's probably just because you didn't see it. Kisuim are mandatory at the school for everybody. It's part of the school's egalitarian and halachic approach to Judaism. So everyone wears a head covering of one kind or another. When students are little, they wear kind of a colorful cap type head covering that they decorate and have a lot of fun sort of putting their own personality into it. As the students become B'nai Mitzvah, where halacha plays a more important role in terms of the kinds of head coverings that boys or girls would wear, we have slightly differentiated head coverings for the students, but yes, everybody covers their head at Heschel. answer to that question. Okay, I don't see any more questions from Rachel. Sorry, from Rachel, from Esther. A little bit late. Oh, there's one more. Oh, yes, hi.
For the higher grades, are there teachers that specialize in certain subjects,
Yes.
or is it just the home?
Yeah, no, absolutely. In fact,
Repeat the question.
yeah, sorry, repeat the question. So the question was, in the higher grades, are there teachers who teach specific disciplines or subject areas, or is it just, you know, the homeroom teacher who teaches everything? No, we have specialist teachers, and really, I mean, starting even in some of the younger grades for French or physical education. There is a Judaics teacher who is, in every grade already has a Judaics teacher specifically teaching Judaics. The homeroom teachers will also sometimes teach some of those subjects together with the specialist teacher, but definitely by the time the students get to middle school, there'll be somebody teaching kind of math science and someone teaching language arts history, and then, you know, a different teacher might be teaching Hebrew language, and yet a different teacher teaching the Judaic subject, so that the students do get a lot of expertise, and then it all kind of comes together through the big ideas. So the curriculum is what kind of joins the subjects together, but the teachers are often teaching in their discipline specialties, for sure. Any other questions? Yes?
Is there Hebrew in every topic, or is it just in the Judaic studies?
Great question. So the question was, is there Hebrew in every topic? So the language of instruction is Hebrew for Hebrew language and Judaic studies classes. I guess we can put it that way. In junior kindergarten and senior kindergarten, there are two teachers in the classroom at all times. One of them only speaks to the students in Hebrew. One of them speaks to the students in English, but might also use Hebrew from time to time. It's a kind of a bilingual process. In the junior kindergarten and senior kindergarten classes, it could be a little bit more fluid. So there might be some science classes taught in Hebrew, and there might be some, you know, Jewish studies concepts taught in English. It kind of goes back and forth between the two teachers. After that, kind of from grade 1 up, the subjects that you would normally expect to be what we call general studies, math, science, language arts, social science, those would normally be taught in English, but there might be some Hebrew words thrown in, some Hebrew concepts, some Jewish concepts, and those might be referred to in Hebrew, but generally they'd be taught in English, and then all of the traditionally Jewish subjects would be taught in Hebrew. But again, there's a lot of integration. So, you know, I happen to be teaching a little bit of grade 8 at the moment, and we're reading the last book of the Torah, Sefer Devarim, Deuteronomy, and I said to the students, look guys, we're not actually just reading Torah right now, we're actually doing a little bit of political science, because what this book really is about are the laws and the practices that the people of Israel are going to put into place when they come into the land of Israel and they want to build a really just society. What kind of laws would they need? And I'm teaching the whole class in Hebrew, except I'm asking them to go find some articles on the internet or from the newspaper that relate to some of the concepts that we're learning. So those are in English. So they were complaining a little bit that we were doing some language arts during Torah class. So I was really happy for them to be complaining about that. So there is that kind of intermixing, but for the most part, the language of instruction is English for general studies and Hebrew for Judaic studies. Did that answer your question? Okay. Another question on my phone? Yeah. Yes, okay. Do we teach French? And if so, in what grade does French instruction start? So yes, we absolutely do teach French, and it is français en français. So the same way we approach Hebrew, we approach French. The teacher speaks to the students in French. It starts in grade 2. We also have French in gym starting in grade 5. So our physical education classes are taught in French from grade 5 up, which adds a little bit more French to the mix, and just another opportunity to engage with the language. So yes, lots of French as well. Yes?
Is there any particular disadvantage of a child overcoming grade 1 given the intricacies of Hebrew?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we generally encourage students to... Oh, sorry. Question was, is it disadvantageous for a student to come to the school in grade 1? I'm assuming you think from the kind of the language acquisition perspective, right? So we generally encourage students, if possible, to start as early as possible because of the bilingual program in junior kindergarten and senior kindergarten. Kids' brains are very flexible, especially when it comes to language when they're young. So grade 1 is not really an issue. Sometimes the first couple months, the kids are a little bit like, what is going on here? But they usually adjust pretty quickly and integrate really well. It's not uncommon for students to come in grade 1, and actually, due to COVID, a lot of families have been keeping their kids in programs that they were certain weren't going to get shut down by the government. So we are having a few more than usual, having kids coming in SK in grade 1. So we're kind of attuned to that as well. But generally speaking, unless there's a sort of a real language acquisition challenge for the student, it's not an issue. Yeah. Anything else? Hi.
How do you pursue outdoor learning and now that you've learned on how you visited and how you got in the classroom, using the outdoor space much more than maybe in a typical year?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. So we're always trying to, expand it as much as possible. We have a lot of great space out there. We, last year, I guess over the summer, we built 3 outdoor classrooms. So we actually have covered spaces that teachers use, and people are using it for teaching pretty much anything. So math, science, I do my tefillah class outside. We're always in the process at the school of sort of developing our program and our approach to learning. And so we have teachers kind of writing in little outdoor activities into their curriculum. The poetry unit, for example, there have been many opportunities for teachers to take their students outside. It's a great place to do some of that imaginative learning, and we're just kind of keep growing it. It's a really important part of the school. Okay, anything else? Nope, going once, going twice. Any more questions over here? Okay, great, awesome. So if more questions come up, and I'm sure they will, you can always reach out to us, and when we go on the tour, happy to answer any more questions that you might have. Okay, back to you, Bailey.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I'm just going to wrap things up here, at least with the presentation part of the evening. So I just want to point out some other really valuable resources to get different perspectives and sources of information about Heschel. The first one I'm going to point out is the Heschel Hive. The school's had a blog for a while, but we've really revitalized it this year and given it a new name. So there's lots of articles in there that would be of interest to prospective families, whether it's a blog post about the Midot or about the Poetry Festival that's coming up this Friday. There's going to be lots of things that give you insight into the school. And Esther's going to be putting links to these into the chat. I will send them out to the people who are here in the room. Greg already mentioned Think Magazine. The brand new Think just came out this week. Those of you who are here who have it in your bag, Esther will give those at home the link to look at it online. But if you would like to get a hard copy, please just send me an email to admissions@torontoheschel.org, and I'd be very happy to send you a hard copy, because it's always nice. It's a beautiful magazine. It's just nice to be able to hold it in your hands, I think. YouTube, we have a YouTube channel. There are a gazillion videos on there about all sorts of elements of the Heschel program. And lastly, as I mentioned before, if you do want to speak with another, Johnny was really very helpful tonight, thank you. If you do want to speak to another parent and get their perspective, I would be very happy to connect you. So that's just an email to me. Lastly, the virtual tour. So those of you who are here are hopefully going to come see the school. But even if you're here, it's actually worth taking a look at the virtual tour, because every room on the tour and every outdoor space on the tour actually has videos of teachers talking about their grade or their specialty. So even if you're here, it's worth checking it out. And lastly, I just want to invite everyone, whether you're home or here, on Sunday, November 28th at 10 a.m., we're going to be hosting our early years Hanukkah party. So it's specifically for kids aged 18 months to 6 years old. There's going to be lots of fun activities. It's run by 2 Heschel early years teachers. So there is a link to register. Again, I will send you all a follow-up email. I'll send you the link, but hope you'll be able to join us for that. And that is the end of the formal presentation. For those of you at home, as I mentioned earlier, Esther is now going to play for you a video. It's a 7-minute video, I believe, of Heidi Friedman speaking about how the kids learn in the JK program. For those of you who are here, we can hear Heidi do that live and be actually in the JK and SK classrooms. So thank you all very, very much for coming. We're really, really happy, again, that you've taken the time to look into whether the Toronto Heschel School is right for you. And we'll see you again soon. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Esther. I've been behind the scenes this evening. It's lovely to see all of your names in the participants list. I'm going to play Heidi's video for you now from last year's open house about Heschel's early years program. So enjoy.
So our JK program, our JK students are currently learning about day one of creation. The JK program is structured around creation and what is our place in creation within the context of the world, which developmentally speaks to both where children are beginning to kind of school life, expand themselves in the world. And each, as Greg touched on before, each topic of study has a big idea generative topic. So children in JK currently are looking at the difference between light and dark, which helps us notice and name differences. And this kind of spans all subjects and all domains of what the children are currently doing in JK. So let's explore that together and see what it looks like. So text study, as Greg said, the generative topic, the beginning of the learning in our early years program starts with a text. That's the beginning place. So here you see teacher reading from the Torah, and children very clearly see that this is where they're learning from. Teacher chants the Pesukim, the text. And as you can see here, a child over there is raising her hand. They're engaging in a dialogue and conversation around what they're learning about God creating light and the separation between light and dark. Torah is just like in Beit Knesset and Shul, child has a job of taking the Torah out of the Aron. Children sing traditional tefillot when taking it out, give the Torah a kiss, and it's put back in the Aron. So that's kind of the beginning, the introduction to the generative topic. Next, social emotional learning. So social emotional learning is core and foundational in our JK program. And we spoke about the big idea is about naming and noticing and naming differences. So we started out with the text of noticing and naming and separating between day and night, light and dark. But if we're talking about naming, beginning of JK, it's now November, feelings. So children begin to name and learn emotional vocabulary around naming feelings, and do that in both Hebrew and English, and explore with different modalities, what does that look like? Children also think a little bit about, you can see them weaving with colors. So what color associates with which feeling? And every day they come into class and pick a color and weave on the weaving wall how they're feeling. Children in the bottom picture are doing a mindful meditation of feelings in the dark, and what does that feel like? We spoke about naming, but if we move to math, so God gave day, Yom, a name, which was day, light, and Choshech, darkness, was given the name night, Lila. So if we look about math, each number has a special name, and we look at kind of the value of number and how it's named. So what is the value of 2? And children explore with different hands-on manipulatives, lots of natural materials around looking at the value of number, and noticing the differences between what is the difference between 2 and 3, which is bigger, which is smaller, and exploring that using a lot of hands-on games, materials, and manipulatives. Language arts. So similarly, as in math, day and night each were named on day 1 of creation, and all of us have a special name. So beginning of all literacy work starts with names, which is relevant and meaningful and rooted in who we are. So you can see over here children using multiple modalities and sensory experiences. They have their name and they're writing it in a bag with puffy paint-ins, so they're getting to feel that, using beads, tracing over, using cutting and gluing, wooden sticks and curves, lots of different experiences. Children also begin to study letters of the alphabet with looking at each letter of the alphabet has a name, and beginning to look at what those letters are and explore that again through multisensory experiences and opportunities. So in Hebrew, here are JK students in Hebrew class. Lots of song in Hebrew, movement and drama. So in the slide on the top with the yellow umbrella, you can see the children are acting out a song about feelings. In the slide with the little yellow crown, so what's actually happening in the slide is the boy doesn't know that he has yellow on his headband, and the other children are asking him what color he has. So again, children are speaking, they're using language. This is our JK program, and they're learning color in terms of looking at colors with light, which leads us a little bit to where we're going with science. So if you think about day one of creation was light. So such incredible opportunities to experiment with light. You can see here children using a light table, experimenting with prisms and rainbows, exploring with flashlights in a dark box, using a projector and light in a dark classroom. So lots of hands-on exploration, hypothesizing, asking questions, and testing the experiments out. Lots of fun with, yeah, light is pretty amazing. Art, so children thinking a little bit about what are the colors of light and dark look like, and children work together to create a communal mural for each day of creation. So on the bottom slide, you see the large mural that children have created. They work together as a community to envision each day, and it's put together as a puzzle that is then copied and children take home at the end of the year, which is pretty exciting to see the scope of learning in each day kind of put together in an artistic manner. Lots of outdoor learning. Fall, colors of leaves. Why do leaves change? What's the impact of light? How's the light changing in the fall? Children adopt a tree. So this is one of our trees in the Heschel field. Children visit it every month. They start the project in the fall. So looking at what do the leaves look like right now? What color are the leaves? How it's changing? How's the light impacting that? And they go back every month to track the changes.
Lovely. So I hope you enjoyed that video about Heschel's Early Years program. If you have any questions, Bailey Daniels, our Director of Admissions, will be very happy to chat with you. I'm going to put her email address into the chat now. There it is. And I'm also going to repaste a link to the virtual tour into the chat right now. There it is. And I encourage you to check it out if you haven't already. It's a great way to take a peek into some of Heschel's classrooms and also hear from some of Heschel's teachers. So there you have it. Thank you so much for joining us this evening and wishing you all a good night.